Sturgis, here we come. That's the Harley. She's all set up. Got everything packed in there really tight. It's nothing real glamorous or anything like that. Guys, keep in mind that my pack set out is set up for me to be able to YouTube from, and I only throw that out there because it looks a little bit overwhelming, right? You don't have to ride this heavy. I ride this heavy because I got some stuff going on that, you know, is other than just getting down the highway. If you got your sleeping, if you got a kitchen and you got fuel in the tank, man, go to Sturgis, man. Take one shirt if you're worried about saving space. I take 3 because I splurge a little bit. This right here is a little disappointing. Ready to go. Anyway, it's a little troublesome. I'll be at my buddy Joel's place here this evening, but we'll just take a minute and look at it. I just stopped to grab a quick bite to eat. Got 2 hot dogs. That little bit of oil that's out isn't taking the level down at all, but it's concern enough. We'll look at it tonight. My anxiousness got the best of me, so I stopped at a Harley dealership just along the way, and they're sending me off with an inner primary gasket, a gasket kit for the inner primary, and check this out. I have one for the outer primary too. You guys see that? Fits perfect in my case. Pretty sure Joel doesn't have a new set of floorboards sitting around his house. But it wouldn't surprise me. Duece has given me the whole shop here, and I really do appreciate it, man. And he's not only doing that, he's actually helped me do the job because it's well above my skill level. So I'm learning a little bit today, getting this done, but it seems to be going smooth so far. This is where that basket sits. What's that basket called there?
Clutch basket?
Yeah, it's just a clutch basket. Okay. But if you look inside there, you can see that first ½ inch is really worn out. So
actually broke off.
So we were finding these little, just the smallest pieces here.
There's a couple more pieces. Oop, where'd it go? Right there. There.
Yeah.
There.
So it's just pieces from that clutch basket from inside there. The splines are actually breaking free. So what I'm saying is there's enough teeth there that it's still functioning, and well, like you were saying,
it will for quite a while.
It'll function for a while, but it's something I have to keep an eye on. Yeah, I'm surprised that it did that much damage to the inside of the basket, but not to the actual shaft there. The splines on this.
Oh, starter.
What about it?
You got to pull the damn bolts off the starter.
Don't say that.
Yeah.
So Radon's here in the garage with me, supervising me, making sure that the hippies are represented. And that's what it looks like when you get it off. Now, the thing that we're interested in is this seal right here, right around here.
If it was coming from your inner seal, you'd have oil in here, and it's not.
Alright, so because this is dry, you're not worried about the inner seal.
I don't think the inner seal's a problem.
So the Harley's in a bit of disrepair. The Harley's kind of in pieces this morning. Not too happy about that, but the show did go really nice last night. Pewter endures. So this job was, of course, it was unanticipated, and we got into it a lot more than what we thought we would, but it looks like it's coming together. I have the case back on. I'm really glad that I'm doing this because I'm learning a lot about the bike, but I did not count on getting inside the primary. But I'm glad we did. I'm going to put new seals on it and everything because it did have that leak that I picked up on a few videos back. Just didn't realize that it was an inner primary leak. But hopefully we're correct. But I'm going to put all new seals in, rebuild it all the way back out, and if I did it right, we'll have clean, no drip Harley once again. I'll show you more as I understand more, but I don't want to lead anybody astray. I'm still kind of a noob at this. I'm starting to understand this bike a little better and that will make me a better, safer rider out on the highway, in the aspect that if something goes wrong, I have an idea of how to fix it. Get out of the shops and spend some time in your garage, and you can learn this stuff too. It's kind of funny, I think that's about as clean as my primary has looked, well, since I owned it. We did the entire thing. We replaced the seals, inner and outer, on the primary, and we thought that was the issue. It wasn't. The starter, it's back to the starter that I replaced. The starter's fine. I put a good one in, but there's a rubber seal that goes on the end of the starter. I didn't know. I didn't switch the seal over onto the new starter. And so basically, the seal right around the edge of the starter, it was exposed so that some oil could be flicked up from inside this. It was getting up into the starter, kind of throwing the oil up around the bendix of the starter, a little piece that shoots out to engage the engine and start it for you. Basically, just a little bit of oil could get thrown up and out of the primary case, which gave the impression that it was leaking from the inner side of the primary. If you're not familiar, this whole area here is called the primary. So essentially what you have is the starter's right back in here on the back side of this, and there was a way that oil could come out of that, and then it was dripping down underneath, and it gave the impression that the inner primary was leaking and dripping, but it was just wrong. It was actually coming from the starter back here and just kind of running down and dripping at a place that just, well, there it is. I only understand what we're doing about 10%. So good news. New inner and outer seals on my primary, so we did that. It's kind of a nice little thing we did, and I learned a lot about my primary system, which is good. New starter in there, but we did get it's a miracle that my buddy actually had the O-ring here in his incredible shop. There was no better place that I could have landed right here, and I'll give all praise to God for that. There's no other place on this planet where I would have been able to get this work done. We finally figured it out, and right now I'm taking it off the lift. Finally, I think we've solved this. I still need to change out the back brakes. I'm going to do that when I meet up with Shep. You guys will see him in the videos. But I'm going to fire this up and take it for a little scoot, make sure everything's good on it, and then I'm going to be loading it up so that I can finally get out of my buddy's house here. Thank you so much to my buddy Duece, putting me up here, let me use his shop, giving me time on his lift and stuff. I learned a lot from him. I learned so much from this experience. I can't express that enough. Thank you so much, Duece. I learned so much from you. You're a wealth of knowledge, and you're just a good pal to have. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to let it run for just a minute. The issue was it wasn't until we started it that we would start to have the leak. And that was the thing that got us to really think about what is going on. It seemed like it was under pressure, which would mean it's coming from the oil lines. But the oil that was dripping was clean, like brand new clean. As in, it's the oil we just put in it because of the primary work. So logically, we're thinking it's coming from the primary, but we just replaced all those seals. We inspected that thing inside and out. We were very doubtful we were leaking anywhere there. And then it came up to that starter. We were talking about every seal on the primary, one by one. And he said about the starter having a seal, and I went, I don't remember any seal on the starter. Bingo. frustrated. Okay, so it's not a great start. Obviously the O-ring that is on the starter that I put in, it's the wrong O-ring because it's not stopping the oil to come out. It's really simple. I think the starter I got, because it was rushed, Harley had to just kind of find something that was working, that would work. I'm pretty sure it's not an OEM starter. I just didn't know that. And so the O-ring that's on the end of it, when we put it on, we thought, wow, it looks a little loose, but they know what they're doing. It wasn't them, of course. It was just us not knowing. The O-ring around that starter, I think, is just the wrong one. It's too loose, so it's still leaking. It does look like it slows it down significantly. Obviously, there's something there as to where there was not earlier. So it did slow the drip down, but it's still, of course, leaking. When I get to my buddy's place, I'm going to stop and pick up some rear brakes. And when I get to my buddy Shep's place, I'm going to replace the rear brakes. And at that time, I'll go ahead and pull the stuff off it. I think I'm going to actually, well, I'll debate on that, how much work I want to get into. But I was thinking about pulling the oil reservoir, but I don't really want to do that. It's a little bit of work. So if I can pop it off like I did before, replace that O-ring, put it back together, I kind of know what I'm doing now. It should be fairly simple. I'm going to stop this morning down at the bent wrench. We're going to get rear brakes and that seal, if he has them. If he doesn't have them, I'll find them along the way. Well, less than 300 miles to do today, so it shouldn't be tough. 260, I think, is what it ends up being. So between here and there, I have to make sure I show up at Shep's with a seal and some rear brakes. But that's where we're at. Hey, if you guys haven't subbed to the channel, appreciate if you would. I know that working on the bikes, it's just part of traveling out here, and if this is interesting to you, it'd be good to have you following along. Thanks so much for your support, guys. So he did have the brakes, so I got the brake pads, but he did not have the O-ring, or rather, it's tough for him to give me the O-ring because he could look up the OEM, but I think what I need to do is call the dealership and find out what kind of starter I actually got. Basically, there's a little bit right there in the gravel, just coming down. So it's not terrible or anything, but it does exist. I just arrived to Shep's. This is where I set up my camp last time. He's not here. I'm a little ahead, but I thought I would just set up here at the same spot. I want to put on the rear brakes and fix that seal in the starter. And he's got the lift and stuff in the garage. And we have enough time to do that and still be able to leave and travel to Sturgis together. So Shep's not here. I sent him a text, and I'm just going to set up camp. Got that great wind-blown beard look going on, don't I?